In this video, I'm going to show you how to airbrush a fiery tiger using this template by AirShot stencils. Let's get into the tutorial right now. So first thing I'm going to do is just base up the canvas with some black, and the black's mixed up at about a 1:1 ratio. So I'm going to position my template about here to get my tiger design on there. But as you can see, these sections here are the black fur and stripes of the tiger, but I still need to establish my outline. So adding red into my airbrush, Trident paint is fairly opaque, so I can utilize this for my first tone, not a problem. If yours is more transparent, then you may need to add some white into it, but keep in mind that's going to go pinkish. So then you would have to coat over with a transparent red once you've done that step. So just keep that in mind. What I'm going to do is just a light dust around the edge, and effectively this is just going to give me an outline. You may or may not be able to see, but there is an outline there, and now I can come in. I know where my design's going to sit, so this is the section that I want to colour in red. I'm just doing it freehand, nice and loose, nothing too detailed. Just want to get that underpainting on there. And for this artwork, I'm actually using just normal Trident paints. So just a normal water-based paint. I will be using transparent base so that I can add transparency to these colours to simulate more of a candy effect. But there are candies that you can purchase, water-based candies. The one that comes to mind is by Createx. It's the Createx Candy 2.0 series, and they do work really well. I do have other videos utilising those candies, so I'll link up to that in the description below for you, as well as some other helpful videos that you can check out. I just thought I'd use the regular paints because most people will have those, and then they can follow along with this. The candies, you pretty much do the same sort of steps. So whenever I use a transparent tone, that's when you would utilise a candy. So just getting that flat tone built up. So this is the first layer. Doesn't look like much at the moment, but it will take shape. So now that the red is dried, you can see it doesn't look great at the moment, but I'm going to come in now with my fire tool templates and start to map out the first layer of flame. Now I'm utilizing the template, but I'm also doing a lot of it freehand. And this one, or this particular layer, can be a lot less detailed, so you can literally just fog it in. Don't have to be too accurate with it. Do some embers. Also got some embers on here that you can use. You can see I haven't got much length, so if this canvas would have been longer, that would have been better because I could really taper some of these flames off. But for the purpose of this tutorial, it'll still give you an understanding of how to do it. Okay, so before I render more of the fire, I want to establish the tiger, and I'm going to utilize the template now to do so. So I'm just going to put it back into position, have it slightly leaning forward, some masking tape on there just to hold it into place. Obviously you can also lay it flat, will make it a bit easier. And then just normal copy paper, and what I've done is put the masking tape half across, so you've still got a sticky side, and tape up around the artwork to protect overspray from going on the canvas. We are going to be using a black, so it's not going to make too much of a difference, but this is a good habit to get into. And you'll notice I've got a little bit still left over there, so I'll go with the tape across that section and clean that up. Now using the black, put my finger in place and start mapping this in. Utilize your fingers, keep the stencil in place. You don't have to go solid coverage if you don't want to, but while the template's on there, may as well do so. This is obviously why I had to put the red down, otherwise you wouldn't see the black, seeing as we're working on a black canvas. Give it one more coat. Keeping that airbrush angled straight onto the surface, so I'm not angling it upwards like that, because then your overspray is more likely to travel. Now I can take the masking off, have a look at how it looks so far. So now that I have the initial marking in place, I've done my underpainting, I've got my dark toning on there, so now I can actually see the tiger image. I'm going to start to render it freehand and work the fire back into the design. So to do this, I'm going to be using a yellow mixed with white. So to make sure the airbrush is running well, just work in an area that isn't as crucial. And I'm going to start to add in the fur texture using this tone, and then I can work back in with that darker tone later. So this will be the most time consuming part. If you need to, get yourself a reference image, and that way you can find a tiger image and go from there. Whenever I'm getting reference images, I like to use Canva. Just type in tiger and find something similar to this, and then you can use that as your point of reference and just render accordingly. If it spiders out like that, don't worry too much. Remember, there's going to be numerous layers. Just let that dry and then come back in. So essentially you're just colouring in all the gaps around those black areas. You can see at this point in time I'm not really detailing, I'm just sort of mapping it in. I'll sharpen everything up a bit later. You don't need to go sharp within every stage. This isn't going to be a full photorealistic style anyway, it's more suggestive. Now that I've mapped in the head, I'm going to go back with my fire tool templates and work another layer of flame, this time a little bit more accurate. So I'm mostly ignoring what I did previously, utilising some of the same bits like the embers. You can see I've got a new layer on top. Okay, so now I'm going to add the transparent orange. I'm going to show you later how to mix up the transparent colour when I do the yellow. Also, just as a quick note, usually after doing red, I would come in with a molly orange, which is an orange mixed with white. For this particular artwork, I've skipped that step. So I've done the red, I've done obviously the white-yellow mix, and now I'm going to work my orange over the top of that. Whereas generally the molly orange would have been where that yellow is now, and then I'd put the orange over. But I've eliminated that one layer, so you can decide to put that in if you wish, but I'm going to go with these particular steps instead. Now using that orange, just going to dust right over that entire layer. It's already changing that tone. The one good thing about using transparent colours like this is that you don't need to worry about the normal candy bleed that you get, and you do get that even with the water-based tones. So you have to put a sealer over each tone to make sure that it doesn't bleed through when cleared, whereas with this water-based transparent you can literally just work over the top of it, no need to protect the previous candy layer. So now I'm going to keep rendering with the yellow, so that brighter yellow. I'm just going to hit some of the brighter sections and a bit sharper now. Add in a little bit more detail than what's in the stencil. going to tweak this nose a little bit, lift it up a fraction. And using some of that transparent black, I'll just bring that in here. Okay, so this is fairly embarrassing, but you've just seen that I've made tiger's eyes more like the slits in a cat's eye. I didn't follow the reference because I actually thought that tiger's eyes were more like a cat's eye. So instead of making them round, which they're meant to be, I decided to put the slits in there and I thought I was doing the right thing. This is a good lesson that you should always follow your reference, which I obviously didn't do, and hence I actually got to the end of the video, resined this artwork. As you can see, it's nice and shiny, and now I have to go in and fix that. So later in this video, I'm not going to do it right now, I'm going to come back, I'm going to sand the coat of resin, fix the eyes, and then re-resin it. So stick around until the end so that you can see how I rectify that issue. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Let's get back into the tutorial. Now I'll add more fire. This time I'm paying more attention to the previous flame licks. So sometimes you've got to fix a few things like I did here, but I'm still not happy. I find that there's too much length within this section, so I'm just going to adjust it. I'm going to show you how I do that. So we're going back in with the orange, and I'm just going to essentially sketch with the airbrush. I think if we go with the nose sort of around this area here, so lifting it up a bit, and then that other side. So don't be afraid to tweak things if need be. It's going to take a little bit longer, but at least we can rectify any mistake. I mean, I was just following the template, but I just wasn't really happy with the way it was coming out. I'll just dust over that a little bit too, and that can go down. That's better. And even the teeth, bring them over a little bit. Let's go back in with the yellow and just tweak that. So virtually ignoring what was there, reshaping it. Obviously I'll have to come in with that transparent black as well, but I think this will give us a much better end result. I'll just block that out. Not ideal when I'm trying to do a tutorial for you guys, but on the same token, I think this is probably going to help you even more so that you can learn how to fix mistakes. And try not to just give up and throw it away. Keep at it, because you do learn from making mistakes. It's the best way to learn. I think that's working. It means you're going to need to do a little bit more work to refine it all. Okay, so now that I've adjusted the nose section, I want to come in with a transparent black, and I want to just resharpen some of these areas here and just bring out some of the detail before I continue to do the layers of fire. Now if you're not confident using this transparent black, then mix up a mid-tone, so something that's not as strong, just to reshape everything, and then you can come in with your transparent black at the end. Because as you can see, I am coming in quite sharp, so it needs a lot more control. You can see I'm kind of doing those dagger strokes, or like some people like to call them rat tail strokes. I'm not just colouring in like this, because that's going to give you a patchy result. So just get in the habit of paint on, paint off, and keeping that air on at all times. By bringing some of these strokes into the previous section and having them a little bit more transparent, gives the effect that the fur is a bit more three-dimensional, because you're going to work your layers on top of that. Bit of shading in the eyes as well. A little bit of texture on top of the nose as well. Obviously it doesn't have the long fur, however by sort of shading over it a little bit and stippling, you get a softer sort of effect. With the ear, some different types of strokes, just to give the impression of that fur inside the ear. Suggesting some fur just within the fire there. Pop in that jaw, sort of adding a few things that were missing out of the template. As you can tell, I've tweaked it quite a bit. Just add some teeth sort of in the background there. Highlight the fact that that flame is coming out of the mouth. Actually, I think this tooth should move over, so I'm just going to use the black, eliminate that. So a bit of dental work now on the tiger, and a lot of tweaking on this one, but at least you can see how you can fix issues. Now in with that transparent black to render it back in. I think that's better. And black essentially becomes your eraser, so if you want to get rid of some of the areas, by all means do so. Even though this is a transparent black, so just black mixed with transparent base, it still coats over the base pretty well and matches it up. It's also a good way to clean up your overspray. I've definitely tweaked this a lot from the original template layout, but I think it was necessary, so feel free to follow along if you do end up purchasing this template. You could also just get a reference and draw it on, and then just follow the process to render it. So you can do this with any tiger. And also, if you are interested in the Trident paint, obviously we are a distributor, but you can now also purchase Trident paint from AirShot stencils, as we don't ship worldwide. They are the US distributor of this product, which is great because you could always pick up a template as well as some paint and follow along with these tutorials. Again, I'll have links to all of that information in the description below. Just cropping that area so that we have a different perspective for that other ear. Just work in some of this darker shading to give the flames a little bit of depth. Okay, so I'm going to dust back over with the transparent orange, just so that I can get a bit of an understanding of how it's turning out after those adjustments. Now, utilising the templates, I want to rebuild that layer. So I'm again using the white mixed with yellow to work back over the top. Again, just using that template to get my sharp edge, and then sketching from there, freehand, and trying to create that flow of fire. I'm burying the tiger in more fire than originally planned out. I think it's going to give it a better appearance. You can see interacting with it around the ear there, and then going towards the back. So now continuing on with that white mixed with yellow, I'm going to re-highlight. Try not to go over any of the darker shading if you can. It's very hard to avoid some of these bits, but when it comes to the majority of it, don't just coat back over everything. You can see I'm not coating the whole eye, just hitting a few highlighted spots. So what I'm essentially doing now is focusing more on that whiter fur, so those little patches. Just added in a few of the teeth. Highlighting in the ear. Again, I'm also doing some suggestive dagger strokes in amongst the fur, because I'm going to come in with my transparent yellow next. But you can see I'm not doing it as bright in those areas as these parts here. So it's a lot of layering in this project. I'm going to add some whiskers in now. Turning down the PSI because I've over thinned my paint. Okay, so to mix up the transparent yellow, I'm going to be using the transparent base plus the true yellow and some reducer. So you'd mix up your transparent orange in the same way. So starting off with transparent base, it's going to look white when it comes out. Just tip that in to an empty cup. Now this will vary depending on what paint you're using. There's not a solid ratio that you need to worry about. I'm just going to do this as a 1-to-1, so equal parts transparent base with yellow, which is about there. Again, just doing this by eye. If you obviously want it more transparent, you can add more transparent base. The lid on, give it a good shake, and there we have our transparent yellow. You can spray it as is. You can kind of see the thickness in there, but I'm going to add a bit of reducer in there. Not going to go crazy, just a bit of a squirt like that. Seal it up again, give it another shake, and you're good to put that in your airbrush. Before I tone over everything with the transparent yellow, I'm just going to go over this section here just to soften this off. Like that. Now adding that transparent yellow into the airbrush, I'm going to go ahead and coat over it. I'm not going to saturate it as heavily. Now transparent orange, I'm just going to hit some of these edges and just slightly dust over sections of the yellow. I personally just prefer more of an orangey fire, but totally up to you. If you want to leave it more yellow, by all means do so. You can also use this as a bit of a shadow tone. And then coming in with the white-yellow mix on the whiskers, they're going to stand out more. You can even come in and highlight a couple of the brighter sections like the teeth. Pull out some of those flames just in certain spots. So what I want to do now is seal the artwork with a resin. So this is part A and part B, part A being the resin, part B being the hardener, and you mix these at a 1-to-1 ratio. So working off equal parts, you can see this is a measuring cup, however it starts at 2-to-1. So you can utilize the mill in here, or in this case I'm going to use the DNA mixing stick. You can see this one's a 1-to-1 ratio, so I'm just going to sit that in there, and using part A, I'm going to pour up to the 1, the first part of the 1. And then part B, you can see it's a lot thicker. This is your hardener, and this one I'm going to go up to the next 1. Now that both parts A and B have been added, give it a really good mix. You can see how thick that is. Doesn't look very clear as yet, but once it's poured over and I use a heat gun, that'll get rid of all the bubbles. Now using one of these, I'm just going to pour the resin over the artwork, so just starting in the middle. You want to make sure that you have a pretty level surface that you're working on, because it will flow out. I'm not too worried about it moving off the edges and dripping off the edge, it's fine. Now just brush that out, make sure you cover the entire canvas. Again, don't need to worry too much about the bubbles. You can see that this 100mm is plenty for a canvas of this size, which is probably about A3 size. Just make sure that you check everywhere. See, there's still some gaps there. I'm going to put on my mask in a minute and turn on the extraction fan. Okay, so in order to fix this stuff up, I've allowed the resin to dry for a good couple of days, and now I'm going to sand that layer of resin with some 800 wet and dry sandpaper. Throw some water over it. Remember, this is canvas, so just nice and light. Just want to scuff the surface so that the next coat of resin will sit on top and adhere to the previous one. So now that it's sanded, just working back over the top, and I'm just going to turn these eyes into a more rounded eye. You can see how much that stands out, so I'm going to have to dull it down again. What I'll do is just blend it out a little bit. So blending into those existing darker areas. Now utilising the yellow-white mix. Come back in and re-highlight some of these areas a little bit just to actually get some overspray to go over the black. And then lucky last, the transparent yellow, just dusting over it a little bit, and that's going to mute the black. And you can see it blended it in nicely. Okay, so now that I'm happy with the eyes, what I am going to do while I've got the transparent black and it has been sanded, I'm just going to go in and fix up a few of the areas, deepen some of the shadows, make all the black match, and then re-resin it that way. So I'm not going to show you this whole process because you get the idea, but I think it's going to make all the difference. It'll really bring out a 3D element and give it a bit more depth and contrast. So I'm going to get onto that now, and I'll come back and I'll show you the finished product once it's all resined. And here is the completed fiery tiger artwork, all re-resined. Definitely brings out the colour, gives it more depth. Also happy that I did that extra layer of transparent black. And you can see the gloss there. And to continue your learning, be sure to check out some of the other videos and playlists that I've got listed here. And until next time, go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.